If you're feeling exhausted with the sanguine bovinity of the modern world and are looking for a philosophical cyanide pill in order to crush your hopes and dreams, well, my friend, look no further. Better than food, man. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Better Than Food Book Reviews. I'm your host, Clifford Lee Sargent. Great to see you as always. Hope you're doing well. Get that coffee. It is hot. As you can see, I'm kind of glossy. Got something good for you today. What do we got? We got The Trouble with Being Born by Emil Cioran. Years ago now, almost 9 years ago, one of the very first reviews I ever did when I started the channel was the Romanian-born philosopher Emil Cioran's pitch black but good-humored collection of pithy aphorisms, The Trouble with Being Born, published in 1973. It sucked. My review, it sucked. It was terrible. So it was early in the channel's days. I knew I could do better, so I deleted that one and vowed to return to it. I mean, it's one of my favorite books. I think I heard about it in an interview with Lydia Lunch, the musician Lydia Lunch of Teenage Jesus and the Jerks. And I think in the same interview, she listed Henry Miller and Cioran as things that she was reading or something. And so, though, you know, being like, what, 15 or 16 or something, very young, I just kind of gravitated towards those recommendations and sort of, you know, it's a real Pandora's box, a real gateway drug, right? And there we go. Emil Cioran occupies a very interesting space all his own in the history of philosophy. I mean, of course, you could point back to, like, you know, his influences like Nietzsche and Schopenhauer for sure, but Cioran is he's unconventional. He was deeply concerned with the nature of life, death, being, God, suicide, failure, many other things that would be probably considered by most people to be negative, if not outrageously nihilistic. Romanian by origin, he was actually from Transylvania. He moved to Paris when he was younger, and he never left. So as a younger man, he studied philosophy, reading Nietzsche, Kant, Hegel, Schopenhauer, and so on. He was a big proponent of fascist ideology in his younger years. He actually moved over to Berlin when the Nazis were on their rise to power. He was very excited by it. Totally became enamored with the whole thing. He was a big proponent of it back in his country in Romania with Codreanu and all that. And unsurprisingly, later he denounced it. He was immensely embarrassed by the entire experience. It was like the embarrassment of his life, basically. And from then on, he seemed to completely swear off affiliation with any form of group thought. In this book, he actually affectionately refers to man as the cancer of the earth. While he wrote essays and aphorisms about really the darkest subjects that one could engage with, he often has this absolutely sublime sense of dry humor. I mean, really. He's a rare breed, I'm telling you. For example, one of my all-time favorites, and this, you know, this is just a book filled with aphorisms. There are 12 chapters of aphorisms. They range from like a sentence to you know, a good-sized paragraph, but typically no longer. There's this one I've just remembered my entire life, and you know, I'm just kind of living, seeing if it's eventually going to be true if I make it that far. But I never forgot this. This is the one I think above all. There are many famous ones that a lot of people, you know, oft quoted Cioranisms, if you want to call them that. But this one, for some reason, really stuck with me. I just thought it was so funny, and still do. This is an intro by Eugene Thacker as well, who wrote In the Dust of This Planet, which is a whole, that's a whole other nihilist tunnel we could go down one day, but not today. But he did write the intro for those of you who are a fan. I have not read that one yet, but yeah, let's see here. Yeah. The bottom of page 7 in this edition. What I know at 60, I knew as well at 20. 40 years of a superfluous labor of verification. It's perfect. That's one of my absolute all-time favorites. This book was published when he was 62, so. Of course, there's also the sage wisdom of his writing advice, of which this book is a perfect demonstration. Write books only if you are going to say in them the things you would never dare confide to anyone. That's great. See, Cioran, while being a misanthrope, or an antinatalist, or just about any other, you know, negative label you could throw on him, also had a natural tact. Good taste, right? He had good taste. He was funny, you know? He was a humorous guy. He talked to people. He kind of got around and people knew him, you know? He was also a history buff, right? He never wrote any fiction, I don't think. He was a fan of Borges, so I would have been really interested to see what Cioran's fiction would have been like, but yeah. Cioran was plagued by insomnia throughout his entire life. And this obviously contributed a great deal to his line of thinking. You know, he was nocturnal. He lived when others were dead to the world. right? But ironically, in the daytime, he very much seemed to have fit that description. Perhaps unsurprisingly, he took to Buddhism much more than Christianity. He actually lists a few Buddhist philosophers in here, which I took note of. Preoccupied with the idea of suicide for much of his life, it's a wonder to us all, that he didn't commit it, even though more than one of his friends did, for sure. But he actually decided he was better off living as though he were dead, right? And he did so up until the age of 84. Welbeck said something similar about his ability to write the things that he does. When he was asked how he did that, he just replied, "Oh, it's easy, I just pretend I'm already dead." I'm paraphrasing, but I think it was something to that effect. Cioran actually found the idea of being able, being free to kill himself, being able to kill himself when he wanted, as very consoling. Just in case things got too bad, right? Roberto Bolaño said something similar, I believe. I think he said in an interview, I can't find it though, I tried to, but I couldn't find it. I believe he said he was only able to make it through certain difficult periods of his life, whether because of poverty or otherwise, because he knew he could kill himself whenever he wanted. Somebody let me know if they find that quote, please, because I wasn't able to on Google. I don't know why. But anyways, him and Cioran, these guys, they use that as a means to live, right? Which is great. Anything that gets you through the day is good in my book. And for Cioran, his writing seemed to help in a therapeutic way, He wrote a lot of these books as a form of therapy, and he's blatantly said that. Eventually, in his old age, he stopped writing. As he puts it, he got tired of slandering the universe. So obviously he was kind of an eccentric, right? He avoided traditional work like the plague, never had a career, did have a romantic partner, but I don't think they ever married. At the age of 40, he was trying to maintain his status as a student so he could eat in the cheap student cafeteria until the laws changed and the age was capped at 27. But he was a funny dude. There's a wonderful review I linked below of another one of Cioran's books called On the Heights of Despair. I think that was his first one, by another Romanian philosopher and American professor, Costica Brerițin. It contained this quote from Cioran. "I avoided at any price the humiliation of a career. I preferred to live like a parasite rather than to destroy myself by keeping a job." Not unlike Cormac McCarthy, who passed away recently, rest in peace, he placed a very high value on freedom. The highest. He reminds me a great deal of Dostoevsky, whom he was a big fan of, unsurprisingly. Actually, look, and maybe this is a vote for socialism. I'm not a socialist traditionally, but maybe that's a vote for socialism because that probably did save Cioran's life. Because if this guy was forced to be in a 9-to-5, I feel like he would have finally succeeded in killing himself. I really do. You can't put that guy in a 9-to-5 job. It's just not going to work. Cioran is fascinating because he occupied some space where he saw, this is very Buddhist and Eastern, right? He saw past the pretense, but past the bullshit of everything. And I wasn't sure if it was going to hold up reading it now. I haven't read this, like cover to cover in over 10 years probably. And at that age, early 20s, way less life experience, interested in a lot of dark stuff, a lot of transgressive stuff. So, it's kind of like music. You revisit what you liked in your teenage years or something. You're not sure if it's going to feel as powerful or if you're going to like it as much. It's a little bit dangerous sometimes because you just have this, the cringe feeling. I realize now, life experience just adds to the enjoyment of reading Emil Cioran for me, it seems. And it doesn't seem like that's ever going to change. I think I wrote him off when I was much younger as being sort of a kind of a misanthropic novelty to some degree. I knew he was serious in some respects, but I didn't have the life experience or understanding to really appreciate his work. And now, reading him, it's still very humorous, but it's also like, oh man, this is probably what it's going to be like for the rest of life, really. Until whenever I die, wherever death finds me. And it's definitely going to find me. It'll find us all. And so that, it feels good. It feels good to have him resonate increasingly, just increase in resonance, throughout the years. And there's other lines, that you might have missed the first time that now you get. I didn't understand all of them through this one either. There's some that really just immediately you grasp and you're like right there and you're like, oh my God, I completely recognize that. And others you really have to sit with and some perhaps you won't get at all. And there were a handful for me that I was just, I did not understand. So maybe I will later. Maybe not. Who knows? He saw past the self-glorifying idealism of, hard work and utilitarianism, right? Being a cog in the machine, being a useful, productive member of society. For a society like you hate, and everybody hates you, and they hate each other, and blah, blah, blah. But, but productive, hard work means something, right? Right? It's kind of like calling that out in the void, like all of this means something. Yes? You'd be hard-pressed to find an author who can create more of a cataclysmic blow to your entire foundational belief system in one sentence outside of Buddha. An interesting thing that Cioran notes is that the act of existence itself, right, like of birth and life and existence, being, in the history of everything and everything that came before and after, is in fact the aberration, right? Life, your life, all of our lives, that's actually the strange blip of anomaly in the history of nothingness, the cosmos, or whatever. It's a total aberration in the scheme of things, and for Cioran, an inexplicable, meaningless endeavor. Whereas, before and after life seems infinite, regularly scheduled programming. It's a place where we come from and return to. It's like the cozy home of black infinity. Ruminating on existence, it wasn't the issue of death, Cioran realized, that was where the problem starts. It was actually birth, thus the title of this book. When he was younger, I assume while discussing his depression and melancholy nature with his mother, his own mother told him she would have had an abortion if she'd known he would be so miserable. He took this very well, apparently. Awestruck and fascinated with the kind of random, accidental nature of his existence, rather than being offended by the prospect. Apparently it kind of kick-started a line of thinking that produced this work. So, there you go. He failed at just about everything, often intentionally, it seems. Like suicide, it was a big preoccupation of his. Failure, that is. But try as he did to avoid it, he became a literary success. I think he really sincerely tried not to be, But he failed at that too. He was writing because he couldn't not. Try hard as he might have. I think Bukowski gave great advice like that. He said, if it doesn't come bursting out of you, in spite of everything, don't do it. So yeah, this book was published when he was about 62 or thereabouts. By then he'd lived a whole life of trying not to. For all the things he's called, all the labels put on him, I don't find him depressing to read, personally. I don't know if Cioran's right, but I do recognize myself in a lot of his writings. He makes me laugh quite a bit in the way that suggests that he's telling a lot of truths that nobody else is willing to. He's a very animated, intelligent, well-read mind. Kind of excitable, a great conversationalist, it seems. Kind of charming, very unique, very much himself. I've linked to this interview below, and I think it really captures his personality. He's kind of, he's trying to get it all right, because it's easy to misinterpret him, I think. I'm not saying he's always correct, but I am saying he's usually sincere. How am I sure? Well, for one, as proof that he's not just writing to get accolades and attention, in this interview below, he blatantly insults his readers. What few he has in 1973, that is. He says, most people that read me are pathetic, and they're neurotics. Granted, this was 73, so his audience has substantially increased since then. But, look at me, he was more correct than not, right? Of course, this was either the greatest case of projection one could find, or he was fully aware of his own failures. Probably both. I don't think that reading the book cover to cover is necessarily the best way to approach it. I think a better way would be to kind of pick one line a day and ruminate on it. And of course, that will take much longer. But I think that's the appropriate method of reading this book. These lines are meant to be thought about. Each line needs to gestate. There's actually something very relaxing about reading Cioran. It's like, I don't have to worry. We all are, in fact, just going to be obliterated and forgotten. Like if you're ever just having a bad day and get in a fight with your spouse or your boss or your parents or like your friends or or people on Twitter or, you get publicly humiliated or something and you get in a fight with Elon Musk on Twitter and he makes fun of you and calls you something that's really clever and 50 million people laugh at you and repost it and you lose your job and you lose your marriage and, you go into debt because you lost everything because everybody hates you because Elon Musk made fun of you. And then it turns out he's an evil bastard and he runs over your dog with his Tesla, but you can't do anything about it because, the Secret Service will kill your whole family if you say anything. And Elon Musk is driving away oh, and everything's awful, it's terrible, terrible feeling being in that position in life. And then you read Emil Cioran and you're like, oh yeah, we're all going to be obliterated and forgotten, including Elon Musk. So now you can relax, because none of it matters. And then you relax enough so that you can come up with a good comeback. And then all of a sudden, oh yeah, you make a good crack on Twitter at the expense of Elon Musk, and then you're famous. And everybody like wants to have sex with you and give you money, but you don't care, because you know we're all going to die and nothing matters anyways. So as far as Cioran, sure, you could read him as a joke, for sure. He once opened a talk he was invited to give in Zurich with the words, "But I'm just a joker." Jokes aside, engaging with these ideas, confronting them, really does hold one's feet to the fire, as if to look in the mirror and ask yourself, okay, what is really going on here in this life of yours, if anything? If one were to sincerely do that, they might irreparably shatter their entire image of themselves. I'm not at all saying that's a good thing or you should do it, by the way. Be careful. But I love him because so much of modern philosophy or commentary or culture just seems to be strange, addled individuals making shit up. None of it has any substance or truth. Like, none of it. Even the ones who seem to be contrarians. You know what I'm talking about? There's so many of these talking heads and it's all just like blah, 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 blah. It's just a waste of life. It's just like pretentious, like political or self-help goofballism. It's like, what is this? So he's not for everybody. Thank God. Frankly, why would you want to read somebody that is? If you're feeling exhausted with the sanguine bovinity of the modern world and are looking for a philosophical cyanide pill in order to crush your hopes and dreams, well, my friend, look no further. This is one of his most quoted, one of his most famous, and it's written as if somebody is asking him this question, and he's replying, "What do you do from morning to night?" "I endure myself." Classic. Better than food. One of my all-time favorites. So you should read it. Those who are fans of Buddhism and Buddhist philosophy, Eastern philosophy, and if you enjoy Thomas Ligotti, Michel Houellebecq, Borges, Georges Bataille, Schopenhauer, Nietzsche, and Dostoevsky. Coffee time. For those of you who are new, thank you very much for stopping by and watching. I take the names of all the patrons on Patreon who have donated $5 or more per video to the show. I place your names in this mason jar, and for each review I pull out a name, and whoever's name I pull out is sent a hard copy of the book I'm reviewing, plus a bag of coffee, roasted by yours truly. And the coffee is delicious, currently from Sumatra. If you'd like to get in on that and help support the show, I sincerely appreciate it. Thank you very much. You can click on the link below or go to patreon.com/books are better than food and donate $5 or more per video. For donating $1 or more, you'll get access to the Patron-Only Reviews, the Discord channel, plus the Better Than Friday newsletter I send out every Friday, which is just a list of 5 different things I'm interested in at any given time. Could be books in the pipeline, music, films, changes week to week. And there's a lot of those, so if you want some new recommendations of various things, yeah, I highly suggest you check it out. If you think we have similar taste, I think you'll really enjoy that. Also, international shipping is included. So, thank you very much to all the patrons, and best of luck. Okay, here we go. Braxton. Braxton W. Thank you very much, Braxton. Really appreciate it. You're going to receive The Trouble with Being Born by Emil Cioran, plus a bag of coffee, roasted by yours truly. And I hope you love both. Cheers. Please subscribe if you have not already and hit the thumbs up if you enjoy this. And always remember, die reading. Thanks very much for stopping by. Great to see you as always. Hope you're doing well. Take care of yourselves. Have a good night. Talk to you soon. Ciao.